Let me start with the first question. Candidates, can you tell us, please, what items are in your agendas for the Latino community and the African American community? But there's one item in particular that I would like to know more. Currently, North Carolina has a lawsuit against the executive action from President Obama on immigration. If you get elected, what kind of steps are you going to take in regards to this lawsuit?
In regard to what President Obama's done, I clearly support his position. I'm against the lawsuit. I want to make it very clear that it's important on education is one of the points that were brought up today, and I want to share with you. Education is crucial for all of us, all of our children, Latinos, African Americans, the white community, the Native American community, Asian American community. And it is so important as I go across North Carolina, I see so many young people in these smaller areas, in these rural counties, that are not getting the same educational opportunities that we're having here in our larger urban counties. I don't feel that because you happen to be born in one county in North Carolina, born in another county in North Carolina, you're going to have unequal education. I see it in the eastern part of the state, the western part of the state. We do pretty well in our urban counties, but I think it's crucial that we have good educational opportunities for all, and that includes Latino, African American, Asian American, Native American. So so the bottom line is this: education. Can you all fix that and save my 2 minutes? Testing, testing. All right. So I think one of the most important things that we do is that we see that every child, Latinos in particular, African Americans in particular, as I said, the white community and every community, that they have that opportunity for a pathway to success. And it can't be based on your economics, it can't be based on your color, it can't be based on the county that you happen to come from. And you've got to have a governor who is going to speak out and speak strongly about these issues and not be afraid of what the Republican legislature might do. People are looking for someone to stand up for them and to fight for them. And that's one of the things that you can count on me doing, because I've been fighting all across North Carolina against the establishment, against big money, trying to reach each and every one of the people in this state so that they can have an opportunity to have someone who is not bought up or caught up by all of the money and the big money and the politics that's been going on here in North Carolina.
Let me just repeat the question, Mr. Cooper. Can you tell us what are the items that are in your agenda for the African American community and Latino community, but in particular also your position on the lawsuit against the President Obama executive action on immigration?
The federal government has failed to come up with an immigration plan at all. Even President George Bush presented reasonable immigration compromises, as did President Obama. And mostly the Republicans in Congress have stopped it and failed to enact meaningful immigration reform that can help everybody. And I am tired of the divisive and inflammatory rhetoric that's been used by Governor McCrory and by the Republican presidential candidates. It is not good for our economy. It is not right. We're talking about real people here. I think that what the president is trying to do is scramble to do something to deal with the issue, as are local governments and state governments. Now, what I want to do as governor is to make sure we are inclusive. The first thing we got to do is have a cabinet, a governor's cabinet, that looks like North Carolina, who can hear the problems and issues that we have. I'm grateful to see a diverse group of people out here, And that is what we should be about, being inclusive. Absolutely, we've got to make sure that we invest in public education. These Republicans, Governor McCrory, are continuing to hurt our public schools. We cannot stand for it. What we've got to do is to make our voices heard. Hispanics represent $7.5 billion in spending in North Carolina per year. And did you know that in 2010, that out of the Fortune 500 companies, that 40% of them were founded by an immigrant or a child of an immigrant? We have to stop this language. We have to all come together, and we have to get to work.
Thank you.
Mr. Cooper, thank you so much. Because you actually touched on the second question I was going to ask, let me go to Mr. Spaulding first with this. As you just heard, the governor of North Carolina indeed can make many government appointments. What efforts will you make to ensure that you will be appointing to the cabinet and key posts the most diverse cabinet and administration possible when you're elected governor?
Well, the first thing I'm going to do is to make sure that I get elected to be governor, so we don't have a segregated council of state. That's what we have in North Carolina. What we have been having is the establishment has been giving us candidate after candidate that does not recognize our diversity. So I see nothing wrong with having an African American to be governor of all the people in North Carolina. And also, as far as the cabinet is concerned, I want to make sure that we have not only a diverse candidate with a diverse governor, but we want to be able to see that those people that serve in my administration are going to be Latina, going to be African American, going to be within the white community. And also, I want to tell you this, are going to be in the unaffiliated party to be able to be a part of this. Because I am so tired of this bickering, this fighting that goes on. Just the career politicians that always want to just to find a way to stay in office by fighting each other. And then who gets caught in the middle? We the people. All of us the people, we get caught in the middle. And so I'm saying to you tonight that yes, we will have a diverse cabinet. We will have it both through party and through ethnicity. It will be one based on qualifications and very qualified people. And that's one of the things I keep hearing. Time and time again, they want to say, well, Latinos are not qualified, African Americans are not qualified, or whatever the case might be. Unaffiliated, well, we can't count on which way they vote. When you govern, it's not about that. We've got qualified people all across this state. All we want to do, including an African American candidate who's running for governor, to be able to have an opportunity to give our talents to the people, to give what our experiences have been for the people, to be able to find a way to pull this state together as one, all of us being North Carolinians.
Thank you, Mr. Spaulding. Mr. Cooper, you touched on this briefly in your first answer, but to give you a chance to expound on it further, then what efforts will you make to ensure that you will be appointing to cabinet and key posts the most diverse cabinet and administration possible?
Well, the first thing we have to admit, and I think everyone knows it in here, is that racism does exist. It is sometimes open, it is sometimes latent. One of the things that I did when I became Attorney General was appointed somebody to head a diversity effort to make sure we recruited people of color and also women to the Department of Justice, to the State Bureau of Investigation. And we made tremendous success doing that. One of the things you have to do to make sure you have diversity is you have to train upper-level management people who do the hiring. There are a lot of white upper-level management people who don't believe they're racist and who work hard and do the best they can. But sometimes when they're doing interviews, they choose the person they feel the most comfortable with. And a lot of times that is another white person. By going in and training people to say, hey, We've got to have a department that looks like North Carolina. We got to have a state government that looks like North Carolina. And the way to do that is you're going to make your organization stronger if it is diverse. And what I will do is to make sure we have leadership throughout this state that does look like our state, that reflects who we are. I know so many of you out there, and we've worked together on issues to help bring justice to people. We have fought predatory lending. We have filed actions in court to support the Voting Rights Act. We've done a number of things together where we are working to make a better North Carolina. You're stronger when you're diverse. And as governor, I pledge that I'll do that.
Thank you. Since in the last question, Mr. Spaulding had the opportunity to speak first, I would like to ask Mr. Cooper to answer this time first. If you are elected, what steps are you going to take to restore the economy of the state without putting more hardships on the middle and the poor class in our state?
Well, the first thing we got to do is change governors. That's the first thing we've got to do. We've got a governor who has signed legislation to provide big tax giveaways to out-of-state corporations at the expense of the middle class and our public schools. We've got a governor who has supported a tax structure that makes it harder on everyday working people. What we've got to do in North Carolina is to stop that, for one thing, stop it, and make sure we invest in our schools, pay our teachers more. We have to have an emphasis, too, on working in minority communities and making sure that we have economic development plans that understand that there is diversity, that our rural areas and our urban areas are different. And what we can do is to take those savings and invest it in public education and make sure that we're doing the things that we need to do to build a strong economy. We've got people out there right now who are working harder and working longer than ever before and getting paid less money. The rest of the country is getting a pretty significant economic recovery, but in North Carolina, we rank last in the South in wage growth. Now that's wrong, and that's telling me that any economic growth that our state government has is going to those at the top. And what this governor and this Republican leadership is doing is making it harder for everybody else. We need a living wage. We need to fight for it. We need to do everything that we can to make sure that state government is fair. And I look forward to working with you for a better North Carolina for everybody.
Thank you, Mr. Cooper. Mr. Spaulding, if you are elected, what steps are you going to take to restore the economy of the state without putting more hardships on the medium and low-income families?
I'll tell you very easy. I've already started doing it for the last 30 years. You know, I'm not a career politician and been in government most of my life. I've been in the private sector for the last 30 years. Let me tell you what I've done. Working with people over there in the Research Triangle area, I have been able to help bring in, with others, over $2 billion, not $1 million, of economic investment in this state. I've helped to bring over thousands of jobs here into North Carolina. This wasn't government doing it. It was a private sector doing it. Now, yes, I want to see us get incentives and to be able to have film incentives down in Wilmington and be able to have incentives to be able to help encourage economic growth and development here. But, you know, we've got to also look at our record. Have we been in politics all the time, or have we been out here having to make a budget and pay payroll and to have a small business like I have? But what I did with that business, I was able to help others to come in here, national corporations across this country, to come in and invest in the North Carolina. On the job scene, some of you all have heard of this South Point Mall. That was one of my projects. When we're talking about minority situation, let me tell you about it. We were able to get 40% of minority participation in those $250 million of investment here in the North Carolina that they made. And so it's all about being able to inspire, to lead, to show people from your experience how you are able to help all people at all levels. And that was a cross-sectional thing. It was from lawyers to architects to bricklayers to laborers, to be able to see that everybody gets a chance. That was done at my insistence at the time that I was representing my client.
Thank you.
Mr. Spaulding, do you support the full reinstatement of the 1965 Voting Rights Act that Republicans in Congress are currently stalling, in case there are any Republicans in the room? Mm-hmm. And if the Democrats take back the North Carolina General Assembly, would you push for the 2013 voter restrictions that were passed by the Republicans and signed by Governor McCrory to be repealed?
I feel that they're unconstitutional. I would absolutely try to have it repealed. And I want to tell you this. You know, my opponent sitting with me today, he's been in court with the Republicans, fighting on behalf of them as it relates and against the NAACP, the League of Women Voters, the people of North Carolina, on a constitutional issue that he did not have to represent the state on. And I'm telling you right now, voting rights are our democracy. And so it is important to all of North Carolina that each and every person have a chance to vote if they're legally entitled to vote. So I do not believe in this voter suppression. I do not believe that an attorney general who is a Democrat attorney general could be just like the ones up in Virginia, to be able to make a determination and get a declaratory judgment to determine the unconstitutionality instead of siding with the Republicans against these democratic core values that we have, of feeling a sense of citizenship, just to be able to vote, just to be able to be a part of our democracy. So to answer your question very clearly, I'm absolutely opposed to not only the voter suppression laws, but I'm opposed to those who are helping those voter laws go into effect. So I want you to understand there is a clear distinction here. Now, I want you to understand this as well. Now, I know what I'm talking about. I graduated from the same law school as my opponent. So I have practiced law longer. So I do have some experience and knowledge here. So I want to say to you tonight that I think my opponent's been on the wrong side on this issue.
Mr. Cooper, obviously I have to give you a chance to respond to those charges, and while you're doing that, if you can also tell us whether or not you support the full reinstatement of the 1965 Voting Rights Act that's currently being held up in Congress, and if Democrats take back the General Assembly, would you push for the 2013 voter restrictions passed by the Republicans and signed by Governor McCrory to be repealed?
The first part of your question, I strongly support reinstatement of the Voting Rights Act, and in fact work with Reverend Barber and the NAACP and filed amicus briefs in order to protect the Voting Rights Act in the United States Supreme Court. And obviously this Republican Congress we have right now is not going to be very interested in doing that, but we need to push them to do that. The second thing, there is no question that I am very much opposed to these voter restrictions that have been put in place by Governor McCrory and the Republican leadership. One of the first things I did was sent Governor McCrory a letter telling him to veto this legislation. They've eliminated the progress that we've made and the progress that I have supported over the years. Same-day registration, which is a critical component for voting rights. I've supported that. They've eliminated it. We've extended time for people to vote. They have shrunk the time for people to vote. On and on and on, the issues that they have put into place. I am firmly opposed to those issues, and as governor, I will do everything I can not only to roll back these voter restrictions that they have put in place, but also want to expand, making it easier for people to register and vote. Online registration is something we should be doing in North Carolina, just like other states. Now, as Attorney General for 15 years, I've followed the law. I know what the law is. It is the duty of the Office of the Attorney General to defend the state when it gets sued. And one of the reasons I'm running for governor is that I am sick and tired of the laws that are being passed by this governor and this General Assembly. And one of the things I want to do is change it. And as governor, I can work toward public policy to make sure we do change those things. And as your governor, I will work with you to make sure we get those things done.
Thank you so much. We are going with the last question, and that would be Mr. Cooper, if you don't mind answering first. The unemployment rate in North Carolina among Latinos and African Americans are far greater than any other sector of our population. If you are elected, what are you going to do to address this?
Unemployment is a significant problem in North Carolina. Even though it is going down a little bit, it is a problem that we're still above a lot of states and are above where we should be. And we all know that unemployment is higher for people of color. Now, one of the answers to that, of course, and we can all agree to it, is investment in education opportunities for people and making our schools better. But I think everybody in this room knows that it goes beyond that. There is racism in our society. There are economic problems. When you have a situation where there are more people of color in prison, they're going to have felony records when they get out, and it's going to make it much harder for them to get a job. One of the things that I've done as Attorney General is push legislation like a certificate of relief that a person can use who has committed a nonviolent felony, and they can go and try to get a job because it gives employers protection. We need to be working on those kinds of ideas as well as investing in education opportunities to lower the unemployment rate, but also to make sure that people have a living wage. It's not just about jobs, because a lot of these jobs that Governor McCrory is celebrating are low-paying jobs. And what we need is investment in higher-paying jobs so we can help lift people up out of poverty, lift people into the middle class and beyond, because I firmly believe that we are a state that can answer that call and that can make sure we provide employment opportunities for everyone, no matter what color.
Thank you.
Same question?
Sure. Do you want me to repeat the question?
Well, repeat it, please.
Yes. The unemployment rate in North Carolina among Latinos and African Americans is far greater than any other sector of our population. If you are elected, what are you going to do to address that?
Well, number one, I'll say it right here. I support raising the minimum wage to $15 an hour. This $7.25 that we have here is ridiculous. Last night, I was at a grocery store, and here's a public school teacher having to come in and work a second job making minimum wage in the night shift. And our teachers are where we entrust our children. And so we've got to be able to lift it up for everyone in North Carolina to be able to have the same economic opportunities and economic standing in their lives. Now, I want to make it clear, like I said, I've heard about livable wage, but I want to hear about raising the minimum wage up to $15 an hour. At the end of a Spaulding term, we will have that done in an incremental manner. Now, I want to say to you also that I go back to a point, they say follow the law. You also have to follow the oath of office that you take. Now, when you have unconstitutional issues like voting rights, then you've got to, because you do swear on that Bible, you all know this. I'm not making this up. You swear to follow the Constitution of the United States and not go along with any laws inconsistent thereto. So if you're the Attorney General and you're following the law, you follow your oath as well. So I make no excuses, and I don't think anyone else should make any excuses when they hear me go around the state criticizing and pointing out the difference between my opponent and me on this voter suppression situation. I just think it's wrong for you, Mr. Attorney General, to be defending these Republicans on this matter.
Thank you, Mr. Spaulding.
Gentlemen, if I'm not mistaken, you each have 2 minutes to give a closing statement. I'm just double checking my notes here. Yeah. You have 2 minutes, and Mr. Attorney General, you go first.
Oh, thank you. I'm so pleased that everybody came out tonight for this spirited and informative forum. I think it was a great opportunity to do that. You know, this is the North Carolina Democratic Party at its best. A vibrant and inclusive party that believes in a North Carolina that works for everyone and not just the select few. The issues we've been talking about tonight are important, but I think they're too often pushed aside. When you have African Americans as 22% of the population, but over half of the prison population, you know we have a problem, and it needs to be addressed, and it deserves solutions. When you have Governor McCrory and these Republican presidential candidates with their divisive and inflammatory rhetoric and their actions against the immigrant community, you know we cannot afford to lose this race. Governor McCrory has the wrong priorities for North Carolina with his corporate tax giveaways at the expense of the middle class and public education, with his expansion of the sales tax, which hurts everyday working people, with his refusal to expand Medicaid, with his making the justice system less fair, particularly with his no longer funding the drug courts and lowering funding for indigent defense. We need a new set of priorities in North Carolina. We need a focus on rising incomes. We need a focus on small business and making sure they can thrive in North Carolina. We need to expand Medicaid. We need to fund our public schools and pay our teachers more. We need to make sure it's easier for people to register and vote. Now, one thing I know is that after March 15, regardless, we got to make sure that we change governors in North Carolina. And I'm going to be committed, whatever happens March 15th, that I work with all of you to make sure that that happens. I believe that we can solve these problems and find positive solutions. And as we leave tonight, just let me tell you this. I firmly believe it in my heart. North Carolina is better than this. We need to go out. We need to win this election. Thank you.
Well, first, Roy, I want to thank you for your support after March 15th. I also want to say, and I'm gonna make it very clear. I'm a very plain-spoken person. I say what I mean what I say. I don't say one thing on one side of town and another on the other side of town. And also, any of you want to say, oh, is that another angry black man? Let me tell you something. Let me just tell you point blank. I have passion about these issues, about people hurting across this state, about what's been going on in North Carolina across this state. And so don't expect me to be Casper Milquetoast when it comes to these issues. I'm a fighter for the people. I'm a fighter for those who are voiceless, who need a voice. And so I want to say to you one other thing. I don't run away from my ethnicity. I want you to hear this very clearly. So Republicans, make sure you roll the reel. You know, black lives do matter. And I want you to understand that because as an African American, a black man myself, my life does matter. And I disagree with an attorney general who over in Charlotte with the Carrick case, where he had an opportunity to have a second trial when a young man graduating from Florida A&M was shot 10 times and killed. And they couldn't summon enough energy, enough effort to be able to have a second trial. That's not right. That's not right for that young man that was killed. That's not right for his family. That's not right for North Carolina. Don't bring all of the Ferguson situation here in North Carolina. Stand up strong. Stand up strong and make sure that our criminal justice system is one for all North Carolinians. So I disagree with that. Black Lives Matter as well when it comes to public education. You know, the Attorney General has supported in court with the Republicans about private school vouchers which bleed taxpayer dollars away from our public schools. And then what do we have now? A resegregation of our public schools. That's not right. Don't expect me to be quiet because I'm a minority candidate. We need to deal with the truth. And in dealing with the truth, if others won't deal with it, I will. And then one other issue. Black Lives Matter when it comes to voting rights. Voting rights. I don't believe what I read in the newspaper on July 11th. If you don't believe me now, July the 11th, 2015. Look at that's the online edition. Look at the published edition on July the 12th, where our Attorney General is quoted as saying that our election laws are what we wanted to do and having our expansive voting rights, that in some way they were affirmative action. I want to say tonight that voting rights are not affirmative action. Voting rights are constitutional rights. So I just want to make it clear tonight. So with my passion, I will speak. I will go all across North Carolina, speaking to the issues that are impacting the people of this state, and it's time for us to have a Democrat who is not weak-kneed, but who is strong and will stand up for the people of this state. I want to thank you.
One second, gentlemen, one second.
Sir.
So sit back down, sit back down. Mr. Attorney General, I've been advised that if the Charlotte case was invoked, to give you an opportunity. You sure you don't want that? All right, in that case, thank you, gentlemen.